If the daughter disagrees with her stepdad and says, "Oh, stepdad, you're wrong, you know, I'm smart enough," then here's my message to the daughter. Go get a job, rack up your own $500,000 debt or $1 million, and go pay for your own medical degree. Man pulling stepdaughter's tuition because she wants to be a doctor. Backed. When it says backed, that's basically saying that Reddit is supporting the stepdad in this position. So let's take a look. Members of a popular internet forum rallied behind one man who refuses to make another college tuition payment for his stepdaughter, despite her desperation to become a doctor. In a viral Reddit published on Am I a Redditor, You Material Economy 2823, otherwise referred to as the original poster, said he'd be happy to keep paying if his stepdaughter changes academic direction, but revealed why that's unlikely to happen. My wife and I have been married for a decade, other party began, the other party being the stepfather. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, Sarah, and we've gotten along for the most part. Continuing to explain that his stepdaughter has long dreamed of becoming a doctor and helping people, the other party admitted that she's not a very good student and said she has struggled with many of the college courses she'll need to enter medical school. I'll just keep going here before I give you my commentary. With Sarah's grades, she's not getting any medical school, other party wrote. I talked with my wife and she said medical schools look at other things besides grades, and that's where Sarah excels. So basically, the mother is saying, hey, you know, Sarah may not be great in the grading department, but she is really good at other things. Okay, just her academic grades may not be all that good. I argue none of that matters if her grades are not good enough, other party continued. I talked with Sarah when she came home for Thanksgiving and told her to look into another major because she might not be cut out to be a doctor. We all got into a huge argument. I admit I lost my temper and yelled, "I'm not wasting any more money on something she'll fail at," other party added. I told them both I'm not paying for next semester's classes unless she changes her major to something more realistic. But considering out-of-state tuition rates, student loan interest, housing costs, and other expenses, education data also reports that the final cost for a bachelor's degree can exceed $500,000. Now, I'm assuming that this is for the medical bachelor's degree, so $500,000. Tack on an average of $218,792,000 for medical school, and hopefully doctors across the country, hopeful doctors across the country are faced with a final price tag nearing $1 million. For many parents, covering or contributing to such high education costs is unrealistic, and in scenarios like the ones described by the original poster can be cause for concern, especially when a child is struggling to achieve their desired goals. However, conversations about a possible change of major can be difficult, and according to student career consultant Kristen Clark, should be initiated by the student. We've got these kids going to college, and they have expectations for what their life is going to look like, Clark told Newsweek. Parents need to be cautious about how they're directing their child for that. Because if it's something that the parent is thinking, they're not the ones that have to do this for the next 30 or 40 years of their life, she added, meaning the child is the one that's going to be doing the career, the chosen career for the next 30, 40 years, not the parent. One of the things that I think is really important is that parents have this conversation before kids go off to college, Clark said, especially when the parent is paying. It's better to do that now versus later, she added, and I think the responsibility falls on both the parent and the child to make those decisions based on facts. Medical schools are very competitive, and every one of them have a minimum GPA requirement. Redditor, looks like you non-amen number 4378 wrote in the post's top comment, which has received nearly 19,000 upvotes. If her GPA is below that, they'll automatically reject her without the chance of an interview. All right. The article goes on, but you know me, I like to just kind of get to the meat or the bare bones of the article, and that's really what I like to focus on. All right, so let me put away the cell phone here. Finally, we have that missing link that so many young people graduating with huge amounts of college debt. We finally have that missing link that can help these young people from graduating with debt that they cannot pay off for a multitude of reasons. And one of them is they attempt to major in something that is really not their calling. This dad, I can see why Reddit completely supports this. This father, and I'm probably going to use the terms interchangeably, father, stepfather, okay? This stepfather is not saying that his daughter can't go to college. The stepfather is not even saying that, you know, his daughter's not bright. What he is saying, and what more parents, and you know, I'm not a parent, all right? But I work with kids, all right? And I have lots of friends who are parents. But to me, one of the biggest injustices a parent can do is not level with their child on, look, this is your skill set. This is where you say you want to go. Let us have a adult to adult conversation, as much as, you know, maybe a 40, 50-year-old parent could have with a teen, okay, a late teen, early 20s. Let's have a real adult conversation. Do you have the skill set for the necessary job? And even if you have the skill set for the necessary job, how much is it going to cost you to pursue it? Because we have to remember, and I've talked about this in my other videos, a student loan is nothing more than a cash advance at Scott for your future. Yeah, I know that's maybe kind of the street view way of looking at it, but let's get down to it. That's what it is. And I've said it in other videos. If I walk into Scott and I say, I can't pay the bill today, please lend me some money and I'll pay it back over the next 10 years. Well, I've just given up my future income. This father, in this particular case, is not saying that his daughter is unintelligent, is not saying that he's not going to support her in college, or that she shouldn't go to school, or even that she shouldn't take on some student loan debt. What he is saying, and realistically, again, going with just the information we have here, what he is saying is, honey, sweetheart, babe, your grades aren't at the standards that are necessary for you to get that so-called dream job you are desperate for. The mother, and again, I don't know these people personally, so I'm just going to give you my opinion of what I know it here. The mother is saying, oh, but it's okay if her grades aren't that good. She excels in other areas. You may be really good community service volunteer. You may be really good at sports. You may be really good at helping out the handicapped and the needy. However, this is a medical field you're going for, okay? I'm assuming you want to be a doctor that's either going to operate on people, you're going to be prescribing medications and whatnot. It's all about your medical grades. It's about your GPA. The poster that had 19,000 thumbs up is absolutely correct. It's not about your extracurricular activities. It's not about the things outside of medical school that you excel in. It's what are you actually excelling in the medical industry itself. If the daughter is pulling C grades, okay, how many of you want to be operated on by a person who got C's in medical school? All right, probably most of us don't, okay? We know, if the father knows, if the mother even knows, even though the mother may be slightly in denial, but if it is a fact, and I believe it is, that medical school really requires mostly A grades and maybe a trinkle of B's here and there, and the daughter can't pull it, if the father were to continue leading the daughter down the path of, oh, we'll just keep pursuing your medical degree, now she comes out and the father and mother come out, okay, the stepdad and the mom come out with, say, $500,000, okay, worth of debt for a career now that she is not qualified to be hired in. This is a big deal. There's something else to also consider. And it was when my mother said to me, actually it wasn't my mom, it was somebody in my family who shall remain nameless, but somebody in my family years ago said to me that they didn't think I should go in education. But what I had to look at is, Why didn't they think I should go into education? Well, the reason they thought I should not go into education isn't because I wasn't qualified for it. It wasn't because I didn't have the skill set, I couldn't pull off the academic GPA. It was simply that it would require a changing of my life. It would require me to, shift from one industry to another industry. That's different. If the dad had said to her, if the stepdad had said, honey, I don't want you to major in medical school because it would require you to just simply change states, even though she was pulling straight A's, even though she's at the top of her class, I could see that being a little bit different, going, okay, so really what we're doing is we're just making a life adjustment. It's not because she doesn't have the skill set. When I was told don't go into teaching, it's because it was a lifestyle adjustment. It wasn't because I didn't have the skill set. So clearly I have the skill set. I'm now in my 17th year of it. There's a difference. There's a difference between lifestyle adjustment and not having the skill set. The reason we have so many students in a ridiculous amount of student loan debt, myself included, my 110, until it was forgiven, August 2022, all right, under the PSLF waiver. The reason we have so many students in debt for degrees that they either, well, in this case, let's just focus on this particular story. For degrees that they are not qualified to perform the job. There are lots of other reasons people are in student loan debt, okay, but taking a look at this particular story, she could be getting a degree, $500,000, $1 million. And I'm going to say it's probably closer to the $250,000, $1 million range when all is said and done, based on the story, okay? She could be looking at that, and her parents could be looking at that that they're not going to hire her. She's not hireable. Her grades aren't high enough. It's a tough conversation. And it's, you don't want to be the parent that kills your student's dream. But if you're not going to kill their dream now by being honest with them, you're going to kill their future by being dishonest. How many students right now with student loans would have gone into a different major, would have perhaps gone to a university, would have perhaps gone to a college, a community college for 2 years, then gone on to a university, would have perhaps even decided that trade school was a better deal? How many students had their parents had a heart-to-heart conversation up front and said to them, look, this photography degree you want, this, I want to major in French art, okay, and museum, studies, okay, great, but let's look at the actual job opportunities that you're going to have. The whole point, supposedly, for most people in a college degree, is to do what? They want to have a career. They want to earn a living that's going to hopefully be more than their investment in the degree. The stepfather's looking at it and he's going, our child is not at the top of her class when it comes to majoring in the medical industry. And yeah, she may excel in other areas outside of medical, but just like the poster said, the bottom line is when you apply to medical school, and I'm no medical major, but I've talked to enough people who have either majored in it or I've read enough about it, they're not looking at how great you were in your team choir. They want to know what your grades are, science, math, those areas, medical, all right? So in this case, I absolutely agree with the stepdad, as I think most of the posters appear to, based on the side of the story that we have, that no, he should not continue putting money into a sinking ship. Now then, the story also talked about this is something that, this is a conversation that should be had before, I think it said before a child enters college. Well, that's in an ideal world, okay? I think realistically, it's a conversation that needs to be had throughout college. Okay, we can have one conversation my senior year in high school. We can have another conversation a year after the first year of college or freshman year. We may need to tweak these conversations as we go along throughout school, okay? Because the bottom line is life happens, situations change. What you thought you were academically, really bright in may not turn out to be that area. It may need to be a different area. So to think that you're only going to have that conversation one time. We're going to have that conversation at the entrance of college and no further questions are going to be asked. I don't think that's the best way to do it. I think it's a conversation that needs to be done throughout college. And that doesn't mean, making your child feel uncomfortable, or your young adult, because they're really not kids at that point, okay? They're young adults. But without making them feel defensive, put on the spot. The bottom line is, parents need to have that conversation, in my opinion, throughout all 4 years of college, okay? Your freshman year, this is your goal. Does this goal still meet? I know when I got my bachelor's degree, I intended to go into business. But then I began to discover that, hey, you know what? I had a knack for journalism. I had a knack for news and industry like that. So I actually tweaked from business into journalism. And I remember having that discussion with my mom. I wanted to change my major. Well, we had that discussion before my, your 11th year. I'm losing a blank. What are the ranks? Okay, it was after my sophomore year. There we go. After my sophomore years, I had that discussion with my mom. All right. And then my junior and senior year, that's the word that I was missing. And then my junior and senior year, I was all set and I went into journalism. But imagine if I had never had that discussion with my mom and I'm still on a business major track. And that turned out to not really be the best one for me. So anyways, that's something to think about. And I think something else for young people, I'm sure for young people at times, they feel like their parents hold all the power because they hold the purse strings. Well, here's the reality of life, young people. Yeah, they kind of do. Ye who has the money has most of the control, which is why we, and people like me who've had student loan debt, we want to keep you out of student loan debt as much as possible, because you start to realize that, guess what? You know what? The person who has the purse strings, yes, they do have the control. So if your parents say to you, look, I'm not paying for this major under the requirements or under the grading academic score you currently have, you either need to change your major, well, then you may need to change it. And guess what? If the daughter disagrees with her stepdad and says, oh, stepdad, you're wrong, I'm smart enough, then here's my message to the daughter. Go get a job, rack up your own $500,000 debt or $1 million, and go pay for your own medical degree. Then you can prove everybody wrong. That's okay too. Nothing wrong with that. But when there is an adult in the room and there's a parent saying, hey, look, honey, this is not going to be a successful major for you. You might really want to listen, because here's the bottom line. If you love your kid enough, even your friend enough, even if it's just a best friend enough to go, look, I don't see this working. Give them your point of view, but ultimately you will make your own decision. However, you need to be willing to step up to the plate then and then make that happen for yourself. So, if the daughter says, hey, I totally agree with my stepdad, or he's a horrible, awful person, I agree with my mom, then my message to the daughter is, okay, fine. Get the degree on your own. Prove us all wrong. But I think part of the reason we have the student loan debt we have is because parents are not having these discussions with their college-age student. And what's really going to happen is, from this story, she's already a couple years into college. And because these programs are layered, they're kind of scaffolded. That means the higher the level, the more years she puts into college, she's expected to already know, the bottom part of the pyramid. And if she's going to these upper part of the pyramid and she doesn't have the bottom part of the pyramid, guess what? The upper part of the pyramid is not going to wait for her to catch up. And that's a lot of what this dad is saying and what other Reddit users are saying. This isn't like where she can buy time and tell her dad, okay, give me another year and I'll improve my grades. Well, in a lot of programs, you don't have time to improve your grades because they're coming in assuming you already know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And so they're off on trigonometry stuff. And meanwhile, you're sitting in trigonometry class trying to do, basic addition and subtraction. It's kind of a simplified way of looking at it, but I think you get my point. So more parents need to be willing to put their foot down in a loving way and say, hey, you know what? I've known you since the day you were born, or pretty much, or at least for a very long time. I've seen your academic performance. Now then, before I end this, there's one thing I do want to talk about. And I was actually going to make this a separate video, but I'm going to tie it right into this video. And that is, what do you do if you find that you're really just kind of not maybe perhaps the collegiate material you thought you were? Okay. And this happens to a lot of people. In this case, she might be better off going to a trade school. Okay, whatever trade school she decides, hair, nails, whatever. There are obviously more trade schools than that. That's just the first thing that came to mind. But she may actually find that if she is pulling C's, that the college life may not be the best thing for her. And if she is going to get a degree, she needs to get a degree in something that will not only pay off the degree, okay, the student loan itself for both her and her parents, okay. She also needs to find something that is a career and not just simply a job. And I see that her stepdad is looking at this and going, I know you want this medical career, but this isn't it. And you're going to fail out of it. And he doesn't want to see her fail. No parent does. So, therefore, she may need to have a serious discussion with her parents and go, okay, maybe medical is not my path. What should I do? And it is okay if, for some students, pulling out of college and going into a trade school. But I am very grateful that we do have parents in the room that have these discussions with their kids, so the parents and the child don't wind up with some six-figure, $500,000, $1 million student loan debt where somebody goes, you know what, I knew we shouldn't have majored in it. Because even worse than buying a house, too much house that you couldn't afford, too much condo that you couldn't afford, at least you can go bankrupt on those. But you can't go bankrupt on a student loan that you go, you know what, I always knew this was the wrong one. I knew I should have told this to her, and I never spoke up.